also know that it is not time yet. So I forgot to turn on the light. So good morning, everybody. So see, one of the things that has happened to me is that my longtime assistant has left to do other things. So I'm having to do things myself that I was able to depend on her to do for me. And that hasn't worked out too well yet. So you bear with me. I was to have sent out a post this morning reminding you. So for some of you who not have seen that, you manage me like that. I'll try my best to get better at managing the departure of my former assistant. So good morning, everyone. Now, here is something I found. I found that a lot of people are doing a good job of seeking to distract me. So during the course of the broadcast, they would deliberately raise questions suggesting that they could not hear me too well. But I have since discovered that it's just a distraction tactics, either by some eminently unemployed person or by agents of distraction. So I'm going to go forward regardless of what anyone says here, unless I know my regulars, unless I see one of them saying something about my audio, I will not be responding to queries about audio and all of that any longer. Those of you who are familiar with my platform, you will know that this is the part where I will take on my Yoruba language section. So for those of you who are non-speakers of the Yoruba language, during the course of the week, I will endeavor to have a captioned one posted. For those of you who are non-Yoruba speakers, you can rejoin us by 10 o'clock. Ní òwúrọ̀ yìí, ẹ káàárọ̀, ẹ jẹ́ kí yín lẹ́ẹ̀kan sí jàre, ẹ ǹlẹ́ ńbẹ̀ èèyàn wa nílé lóko ibi òwú tẹ́ bá wà lórílẹ̀ àgbáyé. Ọlọ́run ọba yóò máa pèsè fún gbogbo wa, yóò sì máa fi ààbò ẹ̀ yóò máa fi bò wá. Ṣé rí àkókò tí mo máa ń fẹ́ fi bá wa sọ̀rọ̀ ní èdè abínibí wa, mo rí wípé ọ̀pọ̀ nǹkan tí mo lè bá wọn sọ lédè òyìnbó mi ò lè bá yín sọ. Kì í ṣe wípé kò ní yé yín, ṣùgbọ́n èmi gan ìwọ̀nba ni màá lè tú àwọn nǹkan wọ̀nyẹn sí èdè tiwa torí tó pọ̀ jù nínú ẹ̀, ṣùgbọ́n màá gbìyànjú. Ṣùgbọ́n tí mo fẹ́ bá wa sọ láàárọ̀ yìí, ó dá lórí orin kan tí àwọn ọmọ nǹkan á ní gọ̀ǹgọ̀sù èdìdàrẹ́, bó o ṣe gbọ́n tó bẹ́ẹ̀ ló gọ̀ tó. Yorùbá ní kéèyàn gbọ́n ọgbọ́n àgbọ́n fu. Ọgbọ́n àgbọ́n fu ìgbà tọ́gbọ́n bá ti pọ̀ jù. Ẹ rántí orin Àṣàkẹ́ tó ní ọgbọ́n àgbọ́n jù, wọ́n nìkan ló gbọ́n ó gbọ́n. Ṣé ráwa ọmọ káàárọ̀ oòjíire, ọmọ ọgbọ́n ni wá. Ọmọ ọgbọ́n ni wá. Kí wọ́n tó pèèyàn lọ́mọlúàbí, gbogbo àṣà àti ìkọ́ṣe wa tó mú wọn tán ṣàpọ̀ tí wọ́n fi pèèyàn lọ́mọlúàbí, ọmọ ọgbọ́n lẹni tí wọ́n bá pè lọ́mọlúàbí. Torí wípé tẹ́ bá rántí, tẹ́ bá wòye sẹ́yìn, ìfọ̀ ẹ̀yin tẹ́ ń gbé ní gbòòrò tí ì ṣe ará ìletò, ẹ̀yin tẹ́ ń gbé láàrin àwọn ìlú ńláńlá wa, ẹ rántí wípé láyé ìgbà yẹn bẹ́ẹ̀ bá kọ́kọ́ débì kan, ní tí wọ́n kọ́kọ́ béèrè lọ́wọ́ yín ni pé ọmọ ta ni wọ́, ilé ibo lo ti jáde. Ní tí wọ́n ń béèrè, wọ́n fẹ́ mọ̀ bóyá òǹtọ̀hún ti léere wá. Torí ṣe mọ̀ wípé ńgbà tí baálé ilé bá gbà kí ọmọ jalè, kò sígbà tí ọmọ láńlọ́ọ̀dù ò ní fipá máa ṣílẹ̀kùn tẹ́nàǹtì. Ṣùgbọ́n wọ́n bá mọ̀ pé irú ilé tó ti jáde, àwọn èèyàn yìí, àwọn èèyàn pàtàkì ló wà ńbẹ̀, àwọn tí wọn ò ní ṣàbòsí, tí wọn ò ní wọn ò ní fi igbá kan, wọn ò ní fi bò kan nínú. Irú àwọn ẹni wọ̀nyí tó bá ti lè sọ pé ilé lágbájá báyìí ló ti wá o, bí wọn ó ṣe wo ń tọ́ ni pé ọmọ rẹ ni ilé rẹ ló ti wá. Ọ̀wọ̀ tí wọn ó fi wo àwọn òbí ẹ̀, ojú tí wọn ó fi wo àwọn òbí ẹ̀, ojú tí wọn ó fi wo àwọn aráalé wọn, òun ni wọn ó fi wò ó. Àmọ́ bó bá jẹ́lé àwọn alábùkún ni tó ṣe pé bóyá olè ni wọ́n máa ń jà ń bẹ̀, wọ́n mọ̀ wọ́n lágboolé wọn ipò ní jàǹdùkú ni wọ́n. Nígbò bá ti dárúkọ ibi tó ti wọ́n gan ẹnu ó tì í láti sọ ibi tó ti wá torí ó mọ̀ wípé irú ilé tóun ti jáde ni wọn ó fi wò ó. Yorùbá ní ìrínisí òun nìsọnilọ́jọ̀. Ìrínisí kì í ṣe ní tójú rí nìkan, ní tétí gbọ́ náà wà nínú ìrínisí. Àmọ́ nígbà bá wá ní pé èèyàn gọ̀ǹgọ̀ṣú èdìdà rẹ̀, wọ́n ní bó ṣe gbọ́n tó bẹ́ẹ̀ ló gọ̀ tó. Kí la wá rò débi táwa máa ní pé èèyàn gbọ́ngbọ́n àgbọ́fu nígbò bá di wípé n tó yẹ kó kọ́ọ̀yàn lọ́gbọ́n kó kọ́ọ̀yàn lọ́gbọ́n, òun ni wọ́n máa ń sọ pé èèyàn gbọ́n ọgbọ́n àgbọ́nfu. N tó yẹ kó hàn sí èèyàn kedere kò hàn sí èèyàn kedere, ìgbà ẹ̀wọ̀n ò ní tàn wọ́n ló gbọ́ngbọ́n àgbọ́nfu. Nígbò bá wá di wípé ìwà burúkú ó sodo síyàn lára dé pé kò wá dá kan mọ̀ mọ́, wọ́n á ní gọ̀ǹgọ̀ṣú èdìdà rẹ̀. Àmọ́ kí ló fa gọ̀ǹgọ̀ṣú èdìdà rẹ̀ láàárọ̀ yìí? Kí ló mú mi tí mo yé ń sọ̀rọ̀ nípa ẹ̀? Ó ṣàlàyé fún yín. Ṣé rí, ẹ jẹ́ ká wora wa àwọn ọmọ káàárọ̀ oòjíire. Ẹ já wo ibi tá a wà lónìí. Ẹ farabalẹ̀ ẹ wo ìwọ tó bá tójọ́ orí ẹ bá súnmọ́jọ́ orí tèmi. Rántí irú àwọn iléèwé tó lọ lánàá. Irú àwọn wo ló kọ́ ọ? Àwọn olùkọ́ tó wà nínú iléèwé tó lọ, báwo ni wọ́n ṣe rí? Bóyá o farabalẹ̀ kà, bóyá o farabalẹ̀ kà, ṣérú àwọn olùkọ́ ìgbà yẹn làwọn olùkọ́ ọ̀sìn. Àwọn iléèwé gangan ńkọ́? Àwọn yàrá ìkàwé bó ló ṣe rí? Bó lágbègbè iléèwé ṣe rí? Ṣé bó ṣe rí nígbà tí wọ́n wà lọ́dọ̀ọ́, ṣé bẹ́ẹ̀ ló ṣe rí fáwọn ọmọ rẹ lénìí? Ṣé bí wọ́n ṣe lè wo ọ̀la pẹ̀lú dùnnú àtayọ̀ ńgbà tá a wà lọ́dọ̀ọ́, ṣé bẹ́ẹ̀ làwọn ọmọ ẹ náà ṣe lè wò ó? Kí wá lo ṣe sí i? Ṣáwọn tó sọ di bó ṣe dà náà ló ṣe ń pàtẹ́wọ́ fún? Ìwọ gangan ni gọ̀ǹgọ̀ṣú èdìdà rẹ̀. Nígbà tá a wà lọ́dọ̀ọ́, ọmọ olórí mélòó ni wọ́n gbọ́ pé wà nílùú èbó tó ń kàwé? Olórí mélòó ni wọ́n gbọ́ wípé bẹ́dọ̀ bá dùn báyìí borí bá fọ́ ó dìlú òyìnbó? Àwọn wo ni wọ́n ń pàtẹ́wọ́ fún lónìí? Àáfàá ń sanra, ọmọ ọ̀jọ́ ń rù. O ò tí ì mọ̀ pé ìwọ gangan ni gọ̀ǹgọ̀ṣú. Wọ́n láwọn ló kàn, ìwọ náà ń pàtẹ́wọ́. Kí ló kàn wọlé ni? Ìlú bí bó ṣe rí, ebi ń pa gbogbo aráàlú. Kò sẹ́ni tó lè jókòó sínú ìletò ẹ̀ pẹ̀lú fọ̀kànbalẹ̀. Kò sí èèyàn kankan tó lè fi ìdùnnú tó lè fi rìn lóde. Ojú gbogbo aráàlú kan gógó. Àwọn ò bá yín sọ bí ó ṣe tò, n tó kù tán ń bá yín sọ ni bí wọn ó ṣe tún padà ní 2027. Ìwọ náà sì ń bá wọn pàtẹ́wọ́. Jagaban forever. Gómìnà yín náà forever. Tuale olórí oko. Ìwọ gangan ni gọ̀ǹgọ̀ṣú èdìdà rẹ̀. Bó o ṣe gbọ́n tó bẹ́ẹ̀ ló ṣe gọ̀ tó. Mélòó lèmi fẹ́ wí? Kò sẹ́ni tó wáyé tí ò ní lọ. Bémi ó ṣe lọ nìwọ náà ó ṣe lọ́jọ́ kan. A sì fa àwọn ọmọ wọ̀nyí sílẹ̀ lọ́tùn lósì. Ṣé bá a ṣe ṣe náà la ṣe fi ilẹ̀? Kí ni nǹkan tá a fẹ́ fi ilẹ̀ fún wọn gangan? Kí ni kókó tá a fẹ́ mú sílẹ̀ fún wọn? Gọ̀ǹgọ̀ṣú èdìdà rẹ̀. Jẹ́ ẹ rán yín létí. bí ọdún mẹ́ta mẹ́rin sẹ́yìn lóòótọ́ ni a rí kọ̀ọ̀kan wọ́n ń jí wa gbé lọ́tún wọ́n ń jí wọn gbé lósì bẹ́ẹ̀ ni ṣùgbọ́n kì í ṣe pé kí wọ́n wá gba odidi ìlú mọ́ wa lọ́wọ́ ó ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀tẹ́lẹ̀ òkè ọ̀yà ni ṣẹ́gbọ́n tí ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ń Kogi ní gbogbo Yàgbà ṣẹ́gbọ́n tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ń Kwara ó ń bọ̀ àwọ̀lá dẹ́ẹ̀dẹ́ àwọ̀ kílẹ̀ ń bẹ̀ ẹ̀kan jókòó gbogbo olùkan gbogbo àwọn ń kọlu ní bámúbámú ni wọ́n yóò ẹ̀sìn bá wọn gbé ṣe rí ìwọ̀nba lèmi lè wí ẹ̀yin ni kẹ́ ẹ jẹ́ kẹ́ ẹ gbọ́ lọ́pọ̀ torí tẹ́ ẹ bá gbọ́ ọjọ́ tí ń lọ nítòsí kù tí wọ́n mọ̀ kọ́ fún wa gbọ̀ngànṣú èdìgbà rẹ bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣe gbọ́n tó bẹ́ẹ̀ náà lè ṣe gọ̀ tó ọlọ́run ní jẹ́ ẹ̀gọ́ ọlọ́run kò ní jẹ́ ẹ̀gọ́ ó ní nǹkan kan tí wọ́n máa ń sọ wọ́n ní wọ́n lè fi ọmọ ìyá èèyàn hàn yàn ṣùgbọ́n kò sẹ́ni tó ń fi ọ̀rẹ́ èèyàn hàn èèyàn tó bá ti di pé wọ́n bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní fi ọ̀rẹ́ rẹ̀ hàn wọ́n ti mú ọrọ̀kọ ẹrú ẹ jẹ́ kí wọ́n yéé fi ọ̀tá yín àti ọ̀rẹ́ yín hàn yín ẹ̀yin fúnra ara yín ní kẹ́ ẹ dá wọn mọ̀ ẹ jẹ́ ń ṣàlàyé nǹkan kan fún yín o èmi ìṣọjọ́ ọ̀rọ̀ yìí ẹ jẹ́ ń dá mẹ́nu a mọ̀ sọ lọ́jọ́ mi ṣùgbọ́n ẹ jẹ́ nǹkan sọ báyìí níwọ̀nba ṣókí ẹni tó bá yé nínú yín kó yé ṣùgbọ́n ìyẹn mọ káàárọ̀ òjíire tẹ́ jẹ́ mùsùlùmí ẹ̀yin gangan lọ̀rọ̀ yìí ni mo ní bá sọ mo fẹ́ kẹ́ ẹ lọ ṣàkíyèsí bí haúsá ṣe di ẹni tó jẹ́ wípé fúlàní ló ń pàṣẹ lórí wọn tó ń jọba lé wọn lórí ẹ̀sìn náà fi mú wọn o wọ́n ti mú ẹ̀yin náà díẹ̀díẹ̀ mi ò ní ẹ má ṣe ní tó bá wù yín pẹ̀lú ipò yín o ṣùgbọ́n ẹ máa rántí kẹ́ ẹ tó jẹ́ mùsùlùmí Yorùbá nìyí tí wọ́n bá ti mú gbogbo wa dé ibi tó jẹ́ wípé àkọ́kọ́ ń ríra wa bóyá gẹ́gẹ́ bí kìrìyó ni tàbí gẹ́gẹ́ bí mùsùlùmí ká tó jẹ́ Yorùbá àti sọnù bó o bá jẹ́ Yorùbá gidi ò lè jọ ọmọ Nàìjíríà gidi ìdàkudà tí Nàìjíríà bá dà ìwọ náà dà ilé ìwé ń sọ fún yín pé ẹ má di gbọ̀ngàn sún èdìdà rẹ o ẹ má jẹ́ kí èèyàn náà ka ọ̀tá yín sí yín àbọ̀rẹ̀ yín fúnra ara yín ní kẹ́ ẹ dá wọn mọ̀ ibi tọ́rọ̀ Nàìjíríà ń lọ Ọlọ́run nìkan ló yé o ọ̀pá táwa bá lè wí a sì sọ èmi ò rí jù báyìí lọ lọ́sẹ̀ yìí o kò rí jù báyìí lọ Ọlọ́run kò dá wa sí ayọ̀ ọ̀sẹ̀ yìí. Good morning, everybody. That was my Yoruba language section. Let me quickly deal with the questions that were being asked in relation to the ICE platform. I saw multiple questions coming up, and I did say last week, based on the assurances I received from the person handling the technical side of this, that it would be ready on Monday, I was told last week. So I'd imagine that by Tuesday at the latest, we would have energized the platform and then find a way to kick off as I'll be speaking with you today. But unfortunately, that hasn't proven to be the case, although Kunle did tell me that he had multiple private issues, personal issues that he was dealing with, but I still expected that I would have heard from him in the course of the week. But I imagine that sometime during the course of this week, please pardon me, just grant me that long elastic. If we're going to do something, at least let's do it right. The monies have been paid, so it's not about money, paid in full. So I know as a fact that the platform should be ready. It could very well be that the Christmas season and our predilection for dirty December might have affected the workmen, as in the technical people working with Kunle. I don't really know, but I know the Telegram platform is up and running, but I would have Kunle speak to that, even if it's just a short video or a single tweet or something. I'll put something out to clarify as far as the Telegram channel is concerned, but he did tell me that that one is up and running. He actually becomes critical in the light of where we are as a collective, because I'm speaking essentially in a silo. I'm looking online and I see, I have 179 of you listening in. That's only small beans in terms of what needs to happen, because Voltrons are not going to save Nigeria. If Nigeria is ever going to be saved, and in saving Nigeria is a wholly selfish enterprise. I'm looking to save me, save my children, save whatever I've managed to build in my life. So it's not really a fixation on this monstrosity that we commonly refer to as Nigeria, but selfish interest, altruistic selfish interest tells me that we must save this nuisance of a country if we must bet the true country that we desire. So out of that altruistic selfish interest, I will continue to do what I am doing. And I am hoping that enough of you will find reason to join with us. So please bear with me. Just trust that this week, if nothing else, the Telegram channel, I'll make sure that that is populated. Now, today, I want to deal with a continuation of what was started last week. And it was a simple question: who sold Nigeria? I did attempt to explain that as best as I could. But because it's an ongoing thing and it's not just a topic, it's a reality, a living reality, it has become obvious to me that I've barely scratched the surface of that question. And I must say this morning very clearly that I am asking you, for once, I'm asking you, all of you, wherever you are listening to me, whenever you put out a tweet or you put anything you put out on social media, please add that hashtag, who sold Nigeria? Because this is a question that is very critical, because when you look at our objective reality, you must come to the conclusion that this country has been sold. Whether it can be redeemed is another argument entirely, and we can always have that argument. I am of the opinion that we must redeem it, not just for our own sake, for the rest of West Africa, and even for our race. We actually need to redeem this country. Whatever else we may or may not do with it, we need to redeem it. Now, when I say Nigeria is sold, there is this thing about the phrase that comes out as being too hypothetical for people to wrap their brains around, and it just seems like an hyperbole that cannot be substantiated. But I have a new argument partner. I think I've mentioned it a few weeks ago to some of you. I've discovered how to argue with artificial intelligence. So me and my pal in the chat box were arguing, and we both agreed that eventually that when a country's sovereignty, its key assets, or economic future are perceived to be compromised or controlled by foreign interest or corrupt domestic leadership, that country may be said to have been sold. And I looked around my country, Nigeria. I looked at the objective reality of the Nigerian. And I cannot escape the fact that Nigeria has been sold. Now, so why do I speak? Because it is important to connect purpose so that you may understand why what is done, and why what is done in expectation of certain things by you as well. I'm expecting you to do certain things on the basis of what I am doing. because I can't be doing what I am doing, paying the price I am paying, and you are not moved to do something about our objective reality. It was that led me to say at some time ago that I do not write for you. Like I wasn't speaking to you, I was speaking for a generation that is yet to come. But that is me submitting to despondency and despairing. I don't want to despair. So here is what I need us to reason together. Before I will say Nigeria is sold, what is the objective reality of the Nigerian? I spoke to you a few weeks ago about a friend that was kidnapped on his poultry farm in Ijebode, to be exact. He has barely subsisting farm, struggling on a daily basis to deal with the multiple challenges of the average Nigerian poultry farmer. High costs of input, workers stealing in blind, constantly struggling and only staying a step ahead of solvency. And then the same Fulani terrorists who had already kidnapped some Chinese decided that he too should be kidnapped. So he was kidnapped. The point is that his case is not isolated. That is completely normal for the country that we have built. We have built a country where a man going about the business of surviving in an environment that has already been rendered hostile by the objective reality, collapsed infrastructure, looted infrastructure, nothing is working, but this person, his story is the story of the average Nigerian. He's surviving. He's trying his best against all the odds. And then in the most basic place where you expect a state to be, security, he was picked up on his own farm, marched through the forest, dehumanized in the extreme, beaten day and night in the forest of his own fatherland. Nothing could be done to save him, in spite of the best efforts of the security services. In a country that is not at war, ransom was paid, transported across multiple state lines to go and went and paid in Kwara State, in a country, and you say that country is not sold. Now, here is the beautiful part of this illustration. In that same country, incidentally, in the same state where the ransom money was paid, where those who took the ransom money spoke of multiple points where they came across checkpoints mounted by Fulani bandits, terrorists on the road, terrorists confirming, okay, so you are the ones, okay, so okay, drive to so and so, and they led them on a merry drive from Kogi to Kwara, from Oyo State, made them go, and they had infrastructure everywhere. And then the national security advisor told all of us that those who were arrested with automatic weapons, Fulani, that these were Miyetti ala vigilante in a country. The national security advisor came out to say that he was the one who harmed this Fulani vigilante, who are unknown to other security forces. Now, this would not have been particularly galling if I had not been aware of the lamentation of the old soldier, General Togun, who was given the task of heading the Amotekun in Oyo State, but who could not deliver anything effective simply because the Nigerian state would not allow Amotekun forces to have proper weapons. They were denied the capacity to even be trained to bear proper weapons. But the same state, in the same country, the national security advisor is arming Fulani vigilante, quote and unquote. And you say Nigeria has not been sold. I say where a country's sovereignty, key asset, or economic future are perceived to be controlled or compromised by foreign interest or corrupt domestic leadership, that country is sold. Tell me Nigeria is not sold. But the question is this: who sold Nigeria to Fulani interest? Who sold Nigeria to Ribadu? That's one. In this same country, the man who sits in the office of the Minister of State for Defense, Mutawale, has multiple allegations of terrorism hanging on his neck. The chief security officer of the state he inherited has said multiple times that he's a terrorist financier. A noted cleric from his own state has said on record that this man is a terrorist financier. His own assistant has come out on oath to say that this man is a terrorist financier and benefactor of terrorism. But he still sits in the office of the Minister of State for Defense. Exactly who is this person defending? Who sold Nigeria to Bello Mutawale? The president removed, okay, let's believe them. Badaru resigned. And then they brought in Musa, the same Musa that had been removed as CDS. So now Musa is the Minister of Defense. But right next to him is the one that has multiple credible allegations of terrorism on his neck. Right next to him, the Minister of State, one of those who must have signed on for his removal only a few weeks before. But because Nigeria has been sold to American interests, and Trump could barrel himself into our national policy and he could speak some truth, however slanted, to those who have sold Nigeria to the wrong interests, all of a sudden, the same man they had removed as CDS came back as Minister of Defense, but the person who has credible allegations of terrorism on his neck is still sat in the office of the Minister of State. And you all are quiet. You all are quiet. We're busy railing and shouting and reeking and everything, and what has happened? Nothing. They are busy standing on his mandate. Which brings me to another thing. If you're waiting for the National Assembly to do anything about the forged tax bill, you're fooling yourself. They won't do nothing about it. Nothing will come out of the National Assembly. And this is the part where you have to decide whether you are one of those who got paid when Nigeria was sold. Because here is the thing. Remember the definition I just gave you? Let me repeat it for emphasis. Where a country's sovereignty is key asset or economic future are perceived to be compromised or controlled by foreign interest or corrupt domestic leadership. I put it to you that both are already present in Nigeria. And I'm not talking about the compromise of national security. We've only spoken to one aspect of the compromise, and that's the Fulani compromise. We haven't even spoken at all to the Islamist compromise, which has rendered Nigeria incapable of fighting Boko Haram, Lakurawa, Ansarudin, and God knows how many other licensed madness in our country. We haven't even touched on those ones, and I'm still coming back to those ones because they are even more deadly than the first. So let's face this. In the face of dwindling oil revenue, and it will dwindle since those who sold Nigeria are busy stealing the oil. They are stealing more oil than they are declaring. I was with a friend in the oil industry a few weeks back, and we were just talking. And he said to me, Dele, come on now. I have an app on my phone that will show me the location of every oil tanker in the world. When they're talking about crude oil theft, we're not talking about crude oil in Kano, in the Kano that is inside. We're not talking about something in a jerry can. We're talking about massive oil tankers that are longer than entire streets. And he used one of the streets in my estate as an example. And we're talking about a street of, okay, so you go a frontage of 20 meters and you have as many as about 20 houses on the side of the street. So you're talking about 20 multiplied by 20. So you're talking about, whoa, you're talking about things that are over 500 meters long. That those are not things that people can see. That when they are talking about crude theft, what you are speaking about is state licensed larceny. State in the sense that the DSS is compromised in that theft. The Navy is compromised in that theft. Every national security organization is compromised in that theft because they all know what is going on. They can see it. That I should not even talk about crude theft. And this is the reality of Nigeria. But now, after they have stolen the oil wealth to the point where it is no longer enough to do anything for the people, after they are done stealing what they will steal from what was remaining of what was stolen, because if you are producing 100 and you are declaring only 30 to 35 and you are stealing 60 to 65 up the top, not even declared or ever kept in the common purse to be stolen, a cabal sat at the top already steals that off the top. So the remaining is not enough for them to steal and still do anything impactful in governance. And since they will not bring the natural resources of the country outside of oil, they wouldn't bring the gold into the pot to be shared. They wouldn't bring the lithium into the pot to be shared. They will not bring the diamonds. They will not bring any of the natural resources into the pot to be shared. They steal those ones, and those are the ones that are maintaining the insecurity you see all around the country. Mineral resources being exploited, private militia being maintained, militia being used to chase people off their ancestral land in order to enforce the right of illegal miners. These are the prices we are paying. These are not brought into the common purse, but it is fueling insecurity. It is fueling the civil war that is already consuming Nigeria. And we are still lying to ourselves that Nigeria has not been sold. So, with all of these, the remaining thing to do now is to tax the impoverished victims who think they are citizens. The only thing remaining to be able to maintain an illusion of governance and to also be able to maintain them in the style that they are used to is to tax you. So here is what they've done now. The National Assembly, against the argument of everyone talking about the need to understand that you cannot tax your way to prosperity, the National Assembly passed a tax law that a lot of us, including myself, do not even agree with. We believe that it is unfair to tax the people you've already ruined without plugging the loopholes that you opened to steal everything you are stealing, that it is not right. But in spite of our protestations and everything, you went ahead and you passed the tax bill. But you know what? The same tax bill that we never liked in the first place. I was on this platform a few weeks ago and I remember calling out two persons specifically, telling them that there is a need to join together to fight against that tax bill. At that time, that tax bill passed Parliament. Joint session passed, harmonized. And then we heard from one of the House of Rep members that what was passed is different from what has been gazetted. Just before we even finished that distilling or even understanding that, it came out that the tax authority in Nigeria has signed some agreement with the French tax authority. So it is not enough that corrupt domestic leadership has rendered this country almost comatose. Now they have to sell our sovereignty to the French. It is not enough that Nigeria has become the boy of France, running around doing French bidding. It is not enough. Now our economic sovereignty must be handed to France. Niger ran away from France. Burkina Faso ran away from France. Mali ran away from France. Everybody is running away from France. Why is Boulaba running towards France in this insane manner that is leading this country to be sold to France? These are the questions we need to be asking ourselves. But question again is, who sold Nigeria? Who? I'll tell you who sold Nigeria. You did. Your silence legitimizes the evil. But long before we got to this point, we had been laying the building blocks of a failed country because all of us, without shame, found reasons to be silent whilst the madness was festering. Look all around you. Look all around you. Which one of our national institutions have you heard speaking or acting against the overwhelming madness that has overtaken Nigeria? And let me speak. When you talk about institutions, there are multiple institutions that undergird a state. There's the religious institutions. Yep. Whatever religion, every religion begins or proceeds from a point of morality. That morality at some point forms the basis of the norms of that society. And those are what becomes eventually codified as laws to some extent. What are the religious authorities in Nigeria? What are they doing? They sold Nigeria. The religious authorities in Nigeria sold Nigeria. The church in Nigeria sold Nigeria. Your silence in the face of evil, your rationalization of evil, your continuing explanation of evil, telling the people to fast and pray in the face of evil that you know are being perpetrated by men, renders you complicit in the sale of Nigeria to evil. The Muslims, I'll show you, Muslim ticket. You found nothing wrong in promoting division in a place where unity should be preached. You thought there was something to be gained in subjugating another religion? What has that battered you? Exactly what? It is easy to point to the Muslim leadership of northern Nigeria. But what about the ones in southern Nigeria? What about them? What is it about the Muslim ticket that seemed like such a fantastic idea to you in a place like Nigeria? It was a distraction. You all joined this distraction simply because of your interests, selfish interests. Look at where we are today. Nigeria is sold because of your silence. Nigeria is sold because of the sermons you preached, normalizing this evil, inviting it, preaching to make it seem like the right thing to do. You normalized it. You are just as guilty as those who are bearing the arms today and killing men and women. What have you said about those who go into churches, abduct people from churches? Have you spoken against it? Have you condemned it, or they are honey, kafis? You, the Christian leaders, quote and unquote, in the comfort of your mega churches, knowing the truth, what have you said? What have you said? God don't catch all of us now. You can't go and be doing your multiple preaching assignments up and down the place in America where you earn fat or honorarium, pretending to be Christians, playing performative Christianity in front of audiences and lying to them before David will be Saul. Nonsense. And you know it, all of you. If you are not busy drinking tea with God, you are busy lying to people, telling them to be fasting and praying where you should speak forthrightly in condemnation of evil. You are silent. You sold Nigeria. You sold Nigeria because you are part of the institutions of state. At the end of the day, what is your use if salt loses its saltiness? Of what value is it? Exactly what is your value if a society is collapsing in the manner of Nigeria? On every church corner, you find a church, or you find in every street corner, you find a church or you find a mosque. And yet, evil reigns and it is normalized as long as they bring their tithe and offering. Nothing excites you about speaking truth to power because it will lead to exclusion and they will not call you to the state house to come and say morning prayer. You're saying morning prayer for persons that you know are evil in the extreme. But it's not just the faith institution. What about the court? The court. The court is the last hope of the common man. I despair. Because if the courts are the last hope of the common man, the Nigerian court holds no hope. Quote me on that. It holds no hope. A year ago, I was sat in a prison cell. What did I do wrong? Nada. I told no lie. And they could not even find a law on which to hold me in a cell. But I still ended up spending 21 days in confinement. Persons I left behind in that cell who never had any business being in that place are still there today. And that is meant to be the last hope of the common man. There is one of them, and I'm saying this for everybody who cares to hear in Ekiti State. I'm giving you enough time to resolve his issue quietly. There is a man I left behind in Ekiti. If he is not out by the end of January, I will drag each and every person involved in his case. And I will drag them in a manner that they will never forget. Those of you who know, you already know who that is. And this is a country that has not been sold. A person. I was there for only 21 days. Doctor has been there for 2 years now. For no reason. Man's evil against a man simply because you have the capacity to do it. And you say Nigeria has not been sold. You don't have a judiciary. Let me repeat myself. We do not have a judiciary in Nigeria. You have a system that works from the answer to the question. Let me show you. Rivers State. And thanks to Inide, we know now that they have not been as horrible as they could have been. But they brought a suit to the Supreme Court. Urgency demanded that it be heard on time. The state of emergency had already been lifted. Whether it was legal, lawful, or unlawful, it been completed. It had been completed before they would even bother to deliver their judgment. Exactly. What is the point of that judgment after the act had been completed? That is the judiciary you have. That is the judiciary that you have. It is hopeless. The Nigerian youth looks at the situation. Let me share one with you. The question of who sold Nigeria is one that the Nigerian youth should be asking earnestly. But instead of asking, you are voting with your feet and you've joined those who sold it. You may not realize it, But the decision to leave instead of confront was a vote to sell. You sold. Some of your fathers also did. A lot of my age mates, they left. They found no reason to stay. And I can't blame them. Because when you walk away from the insecurity, you now deal with the reality of poverty. But before the poverty was entrenched, some people had already sold. Because it is not by accident that we are where we are. How is it that the most blessed country in the world, the richest country in the world, is one where over 100 million people are living on less than 3,300 naira a day? 40% of Nigerians are living below the poverty line. 40%. That's at least 100 million. That is even more scary than our security situation, because what that tells you is that there is a ready pool of recruits for every extremist organization, for every armed conflict. 100 million people. Some people sold them for them to be like that. Your House of Assembly members sold you. Your councillor sold you. If you want to really know how much they have sold you, well, let me tell you something. When America said that it wasn't going to be allowing Nigerians to travel to America again, the people ruling you are not worried. It's you and I who are applying for visa. A lot of them have green cards. They have official residences in America. Even MC Oluomo has green card. Me and you will go and queue for visa. MC will buy ticket. He's gone. His family don't even live here. You are raising your hand to Ali Baba, your counselors. Do you know that? Okay, let me share one with you. The bearded clown that was responsible for the murder plot against me in 2021 does not even carry a Nigerian passport. He carries the passport of one of those Caribbean countries. Each and every one of these monkeys in power have one of those. That is the proof of their sale. They know that they've sold Nigeria. They knew that at some point we are going to get to where we are. They bought foreign passports. They bought foreign residencies. Me and you are here. He is busy abusing me, who does not have anything beyond my Nigerian passport, who queues at any embassy where I require a visa. You abuse me, even though I'm risking my own neck for you. You would abuse me all day long. But the ones who are destroying this country, they all carry foreign passports or have foreign residences. You, Mr. Intellectual, busy explaining why it is Tinubu's turn and why these people will stay in power for the next 50 years. You and I will all queue together. Now your queue is in vain. You can't do jack about where you are any longer. But you excuse the evil. Why do you think America would, crazy as Trump might be, do you know that Nigeria is half the population of West Africa? And that man just closed the door on all of us without hesitation. He calculated that they have taken the ones that they need amongst us. They don't require any one of us. I beg me on a whole on ourselves. They shut that door and they rationalize it, and we could not even argue. How could we argue? Did they lie? How easy do you think it is to screen people coming from a country that has multiple terrorist organizations operating within it? A now disgraced country, but now they disgrace us. How do you not ban people where you have in the... Jonathan was the first to tell us that he had Boko Haram in his government, but did he ever do anything about it? No. And you think the world does not listen, you think they are not watching, you think they are not paying attention. After Jonathan came Buhari with Pantami in his government, a self-confessed terrorist. It was in Buhari's time that if they caught a Fulani terrorist or any one of those, once they radio the police station and say, please transfer this person to Abuja, that's the end of that case. That happened during Buhari. Now we have Tinubu in office. Why is it that Mutawale is still sat in his office? How do you explain the continuing presence of Nuhu Ribadu in his office? How do you talk about fighting banditry when you are the one who is busy mollycoddling the evil? How do you fight what you enable? How? Exactly, how do you fight what you enable? Our living reality is suggestive of a country that is gone. So, this tax thing, I know some of you would believe that at some point, maybe we will go to court, maybe the National Assembly would stand its ground. But Tinubu was in the National Assembly this past week. And in the National Assembly, addressing a joint session, where he was explaining why the lies that were told before about the budget could no longer be sustained, and then a brand new lie was told on top of the existing lie. And in the midst of all of that, something instructive that should alarm you, but that also provides evidence for something that you all should pay attention to. In the National Assembly, instead of the national anthem, I heard two distinct tunes. Two. Ọba o ọba láṣẹ ọba kílẹ̀ ń fọba pè. It's a Yoruba refrain. And what it is saying is, hail the king, the one with the authority. What do you call the king? The one with the authority. And then right after, on his mandate they have stood. They started singing on his mandate. That same song bellowed forth from the throat of your judicial officers just a few days prior. The judicial officers were singing and standing on his mandate. And then your National Assembly followed suit. And then you think those ones are going to do anything about the forged act, the Tax Act that has now included a lot of onerous clauses that renders it completely different from what was passed by the National Assembly. As fraudulent as that National Assembly is, they still wouldn't pass what was eventually gazetted. Nothing is going to come out of that National Assembly. And this is where I want to land my message this morning. You can sell something that you didn't realize its value. And I'm sure a few of you might have done that in the past. Maybe you thought the bracelet you inherited was just steel. And then you sold it, only to find that it was gold. But you could go back to where you sold it and you asked to redeem it. In some cases, you went to the pawn shop and you pawned maybe a watch or a chain. And then you had to go back and pay the loan plus the interest so that you may walk away with what you had pawned. So it could very well be that there is still a chance to redeem Nigeria. But if that's ever going to happen, it will be because you and I acted. It will not be because the beneficiaries of this grand theft gave it up. They will never give it up. If you have not been paying attention, let me remind you of what Akpabio said. He said, your National Assembly, the senators, Almost all of them have crossed over to the APC, and all that they are waiting for, that the remaining, some of them have already coming to him privately to say they want to come. Let me remind you, I spoke about do not die in their war. Their war is almost over, if it's not over. And their war ended with the creation of the APC. You see that increasingly they are all moving there. Nigeria is moving at a very rapid state towards a one-party system. They have accommodation for each and every one of them. Whatever it is, if you've stolen, we can forgive you as long as you fall in line. And as soon as they are falling in line, their sins are forgiven exactly as declared by Oshie Omole. And once their sins are forgiven, they fall in line and the agenda begins to agenda. So the insecurity can continue, the poverty can continue as long as that class that has now become elevated above the victims, that class that has been sold, me and you, as long as we who have been sold are suppressed sufficiently that we cannot disturb the beneficiaries from feeding at the trough, they're fine. You and I can continue paying ransoms. We can continue dodging terrorists on our roads. When it's time to travel home for Christmas, like some of you are traveling for Christmas now, they can call ticket to the east or the south. They can call prices as high as 1 million naira. They know you find it, you pay it. After all, how many seats do they have in the skies? The rest of you can go ahead and use the filtration system, the ones that the Fulani and other people who are also now kidnapped, because let's be careful. The Fulani kidnapper might have impunity and immunity, but there are other kidnappers in the business. And even in areas where the Fulanis are kidnapping, locals are also joining hand. It's become an enterprise. In the absence of a state interested in security, kidnapping has become an enterprise in an impoverished place. So the poverty itself, remember I told you, the more impoverished the people are, the more you have willing joiners in the criminal enterprise. The criminal enterprise is about the only place to earn a decent living now. So you have more and more attracted to join. The only thing that can save us, the only way to redeem ourselves is us. And it's not about 2027. Yes, you should register to vote. Yes, if you find somebody who you can vote for to the point where you are able and you know that you are willing to die in protection of your vote, that's my own preference for the revolution. But before you get to that point, you must continue living first. That is why I said during the course of last week that anybody who is talking to you about 2027 without mobilizing you in 2026 to protect even that vote in 2027, that person is a fraud. Is only distracting you. So the idea is that their tax bill must be resisted. It must be resisted. I don't know, and I don't have any monopoly as to how we are going to go about this, but I believe that we must organize to resist this tax bill. This could take various forms, and that's part of what we're going to be using the ICE platform to do. Educate ourselves, talk to ourselves, and this is even what has rendered it even more urgent, because we must have a date in January by which time we draw the line in the sand. Let me be very clear. I have never joined a single street protest, at least as an adult. As a university undergraduate and as the student union president in the university, I did everything I could to avoid street protest, not cowardice. It comes out of an understanding of the fact that the Nigerian government, the system, the governance system is incapable of hearing. So if we ever get to the point of walking to the street, it should be because we have drawn the line clearly. The system understands exactly what it must do to pull us back, and we understand exactly what must happen before we are pulled back. Let me be very clear. A date in January will be clearly announced. Let me say something so that we understand ourselves. The day before I was arrested in December last year. I believe I was arrested on the 3rd of December. I gave a press conference on the 2nd of December, and I told all of you what was going to happen. I was very clear about what was going to happen, and I was also very clear about the fact that the persons coming for me would have to drop me because I'd done nothing to end their harassment. See this one. I don't know what the reaction of the state would be, but let me be very clear. If I am ever picked up on account of this cause, let nobody beg for my release. Don't beg for my release. Let the state charge me with whatever crime I have committed. Me, I am a freeborn. I was not sold in slavery. My ancestors fought against enslavement, and I will not fold my hand and allow myself and my children to be sold to France. It's bad enough that I have had to tolerate the misgovernance of morons in this country. But on this one is not just for me, it's for posterity. My children will not be enslaved in this country. Those who have sold Nigeria to France must explain the basis of the sale. But that tax law, the one that has all these multiple clauses inserted into it, it shall be resisted. Guaranteed. Take it home. Those who are willing to join will join. Those who believe that it is only for them to talk, let them talk. I have spoken for long. I have preached against violence all my life, and I have no interest in violence even now. But there are multiple ways to the market. From sit at home, voluntary, nobody is forcing anybody, to street corner protests, to hashtags. In whatever way we know to protest, we must protest this, and we should start with this. With every tweet, every social media post you are going to be putting out going forward, this is how you test your strength. Oh. This is how we are going to test our own strength. Going forward from this moment, everything you put out, add the hashtag, who sold Nigeria? Let them answer this question, because unless a country is sold, what has been normalized in Nigeria should never be normal. Children in the custody of terrorists, and the National Security Advisor is saying that the children are doing okay, they are doing well. Are his own children in terrorist hands, in terrorist camps? These questions must be answered. Who sold Nigeria? Because only in a sold country would a National Security Advisor have the balls to come out and talk about children as young as 5, 6 being okay in terrorist custody. It's only in a sold country that a Minister of Defense will be talking about a forest where you cannot drop bombs because the bomb will not be effective. It is only in a terrorist country, a country that has been sold to terrorists, that a person will come out and he will be telling the new defense minister that the time when he was an army general is over, that he is a politician now in his office as defense minister, and he cannot declare war on Fulani terrorists. And remember what I told you. The terrorism of the Fulani is on one level, but the compromise of Nigeria to Islamist forces is on another level entirely. I was reading the account of the children who were rescued, quote and unquote, or those who escaped when they were led into Kanji forests. And the children said they were led through 7 villages. 7. The terrorists even hijacked cars, and they never encountered a single security personnel on the way. Over 60 motorcycles. Every week I'm watching videos of Nigerians crying and begging to be ransomed. I listened to my friend when he sent, because when he called me, I was on a broadcast, I was on this broadcast with you gentlemen 3 weeks ago. He was in their custody at the time and he phoned me. They forced him to be phoning different people. He phoned me, I didn't pick, but the call went to voicemail and I had to listen to his wailing, begging us to raise the ransom. A man who could barely find 5 million naira to run his poultry farm impoverished him and everybody around him to pay 50 million naira in ransom. They were beating him as they were making him beg. Who sold Nigeria? This is a question that must be asked. You see, there is a Yoruba proverb. It says, the inability to speak and say what is your situation, speak to your plight, dooms you. If nothing else, if all we can even do is an hashtag, put it out. Who sold Nigeria? Who sold Nigeria? How did it become this way? How? We should ask these questions of those who rule Nigeria. Who has sold this country? But more importantly, let us be clear. Me, Oladele Tumlola Farotimi, I say it to you and you can take it to the bank. A day to be communicated before the end of the coming week. If that law is not pulled, we will be there. We will confront because we have no choice. Not confronting would be accepting slavery, and I will not accept slavery. It will not happen. At some point, a line must be drawn, and this is the line. I ain't saying more than this for now, but just know this. If you accept this, you've accepted slavery for your children. You know, when they talked about the ways the slave trade worked, it's not different from what you are seeing right now. But what I just know is this. Me, I'm not going to be silent whilst anybody is selling me and my children. Somebody has to answer. Who sold Nigeria? To who? What price do we have to pay to redeem it? And there is no price too high to pay. Let me be very clear about that. There is no price too high to pay for the only country that if you didn't even know before, Trump has shown all of you now. I know some of you who came for 30 December who are already running away because you know that 1st of January must not meet you here. What kind of thing is that? And yet none of you live happily where you are. Those of you outside Nigeria, it could very well be that the only thing you can do for us is to continue beaming the light on this country. But the thing is clear. At some point, a line has to be drawn. That line is drawn now. I'll see you next week. God bless you all.